Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Abidemi, and welcome to Chapter 6. We're going to take a look at business cycle, economic cycle, or trade cycle. All right, they all mean the same thing. Either business cycle, you can call it economic cycle, you can also call it trade cycle. So after this section, you will understand the types and phases of business cycle. Now, let's dive straight in. To explain the business cycle, I'm going to use like um, a personal example or example from a personal perspective. No individual has a linear life. So linear life simply means everything goes smooth all the time. No one. Challenges are just a major part of life. Sometimes things are working well. Sometimes you get to your feel good moment, your top moment. Sometimes things are coming down, and those times you're not happy. If you are not happy for a long time, we usually say, oh, some people are depressed. Okay, so no one has a linear life in such a way that things are always smooth. Nobody, even if we appear to look as if things are smooth, it's just it's just part of life. So if things are not always smooth for individuals, of course, that should also tell you things will not always be smooth for different parts, for different economies. Sometimes things are going well for an economy. There's employment, um, GDP is rising, um, businesses are expanding, income is rising, and sometimes you find high unemployment. The price of goods and services are off the roof, very high. You find income is falling. You find businesses are letting people go, or they are sacking people. We call them to sack them, to say, okay, we can't pay your salaries now, you have to go. All right. So just as individuals don't have a smooth life, businesses or countries or economies around the world also would experience some turbulence, ups and downs. For example, think about COVID-19. That's a shock right there. That's a negative shock right there. Okay. And those things have happened over time. Will they still happen in times to come? Yeah. You still have issues in times to come. It's just the way life is. All right. So from that angle, what then is business cycle? The business cycle refers to the fluctuation in economic activities that an economy experiences over time. It also refers to the ups and downs in an economy of fluctuations in economic activities, especially in output, employment, income, and price. So let's take a look at the business cycle. We can take a look at the kitchen cycle. A kitchen cycle is a short business cycle of a duration of 40 months. It was proposed by Joseph Kitchen. A juggler cycle proposed by Clement Juggler. It is a business cycle of duration of 9.5 years. We can also have very long period cycle proposed by Nikolai Kondrativ. It is a business cycle of duration of 50 years. We can also have a building cycle proposed by Warren and Pearson. It is a business cycle of duration of 18 years. We can also have Kuznets cycle proposed by Simon Kuznets. It's a business cycle between 15 to 25 years. Okay. Now, let's go to the phases of business cycle. The key points to note that the trend growth online could also be called the steady growth path. That is sustained economic growth. So if you look at this line here, the steady growth path. or sustained economic growth or trend line. We can also call it potential growth. All right. I mean, irrespective of what happens in an economy wants to ensure that it keeps growing. Okay. So just as you as an individual, whether things are tough, whether things are going well, you want to be sure that your life is in an upward trajectory, going up like this. All right. So those turbulences will come. Sometimes things are well, sometimes things are not well, sometimes things are well. All right. But you will see that the growth keeps going up. Okay. Now, in each of these curves right here, this is expansion. Okay. Employment, you have more employment within the economy, more income, more production or increase in GDP. All right, you have the peak period. The peak period is a period where things are at the maximum. For example, as an individual, if you've clocked some certain ages, you get to some certain height that you can't grow anymore. And that also applies to an economy. It gets to a certain time, your economy reaches the peak. All right. And after that, what happens? Things begin to decline. Okay, things begin to decline. So I put the explanation in each section. That will be but take note, you're going to have, so what are those stages? We can start from trough, you have recovery, you have expansion, you have peak, you have recession, you have depression, back to trough, recovery, expansion, peak, recession, like that. Okay. You also have positive output gap. A positive output gap is when the actual growth is greater than the trend line. So these curve are the actual growth here. This is the actual growth right here. Okay, is greater than this trend line. You could say there's positive output gap. And if your trend line is greater than your actual growth, then we say it is a negative output gap. Okay, so let's see my explanation here. Expansion. In expansion, we can say the economy is growing. One of the factors that lead to an expansion is an increase in consumer spending. When there's an increase in consumer spending, more opportunities are created for businesses, leading to an increase in employment and income. Government policies can also significantly contribute to expansion phase. In summary, expansion entails increased spending, increased production, increased employment, increased sales, and increased income. Okay, mean things are going well for the economy. What about peak? The peak phase is the highest growth point. Unemployment is low. In bracket, most people have jobs and businesses are operating at full capacity. There is high consumer spending. People are spending a lot and businesses are making good profit. The prices of goods and services are rising. That is inflation. Too much demand can push prices up, making things expensive. The economy can overheat, with the economy becoming unstable, with bubbles in housing, stocks, or other assets. Lastly, interest rates may rise, making borrowing become more expensive. This can help control inflation. What about recession or contraction? In recession, economic activity starts declining. A country is in recession when it has two successive quarters of negative economic growth or GDP. A period of recession is when there's declining AD, high unemployment, declining income, decreased sales, and a sharp fall in confidence or investment. Okay? Or consumer confidence or business confidence will fall, a decline in investment. So recession it could be shorter when you compare to depression. All right. So if recession prolongs for a long time, then it leads to depression. Just like you as an individual, if you things are not going well and you dwell on things are not going well for too long, that could lead you to a much more worse state. So for depression, this is when growth falls below the steady growth line. Depression occurs if the recession is very bad and long. At this point, the economy is really struggling, such that unemployment is very high and businesses are closing. The government might need to intervene to solve this crisis. What about Shore? This is the lowest stage of the business cycle. The growth rate becomes negative in a trough. It entails destocking, not producing more, discounting their prices, and low demand for imports. Then recovery, rising consumer confidence. That means things begin to get better again. As an individual, maybe you are going through a tough time and you go for counseling, and after the counseling, things begin to get better. We can also use that same analysis for an economy. When things get to the lowest point and the government intervenes, for example, maybe reduce interest rates so that people can borrow money, all right, and do business, okay, that could enable more goods to be produced, or that could also increase spending. So a recovery state is when things are getting better, all right? You have rising consumer confidence, you have rising business confidence, and you have higher investments. So why don't we get the smooth upward sloping growth line? Meaning that why is life not a straight line? Life is not a straight line. In economic terms, it is because of shocks, demand and supply side shocks. For demand shocks, these factors negatively affect aggregate demand. For example, a sudden increase in interest rate, a sudden cut in government spending, banking sector crisis, or financial sector crisis, higher taxation. So those are demand side shocks. Those are factors that could affect aggregate demand. So demand side shocks. We also have supply side shocks, such as natural disasters and wars, increase in the price of raw materials, business taxes, weakening of the exchange rate, which weakens import, which shift the SRS to the left. All right. So those are the basic explanation of the business cycle. So the trough is the lowest point of the business cycle. Recovery, things are beginning to pick up again after things get to the bottom. Expansion, things are doing well. Okay, more employment, income, business profits. Okay, peak, things are doing well in peak, but the economy will get to an overeating stage where things begin to decline. Recession, unemployment is falling, unemployment is rising. Um, what do we have? Business profit is falling, production is falling, income is falling, and depression, a long, a, a longer state of recessional period. So if those indicators, those falling um, um, employment or increasing unemployment persist for a long time, if falling income persists for a long time, if falling production persists for a long time, then we call that depression, right? An economy does not want to find its state in a depression. It's a very bad place to be. Okay, so the economy gets to the trough again, the lowest point, it picks up again to recovery, to expansion, to peak, continually like that. And we already mentioned that different scholars have said the business cycle, okay, varies in terms of years. Okay, some say 40 months, 9.5 years. So a cycle will be complete in 40 months, 9.5 years. So after 50 years, the cycle will start again 18 years, 15 to 25 years. Okay, so that is the basic of the business cycle. So you would always have fluctuation within an economy. It's just the way life is. Things will not always go smooth. All right, things will not always go smooth. Sometimes it could be exchange rate challenges, sometimes it could be violence, sometimes it could be war, sometimes it could be communal clashes, sometimes it could be banking crisis, sometimes it could be government crisis, sometimes it could be population crisis. Right? So you would always have fluctuations within an economy. All right. So thank you for sticking with me. I'm going to see you in my next class when we talk about unemployment. All right. See you in my next class. All right. Bye bye.